present for you guys tonight. Really excited about this. You know, in recent meetups, for those of you guys that haven't been to them, we've had remote experts joining us via Skype. Well, tonight, it's not any expert, it's the expert, and he's not remote, he's here. I'm really thrilled that Eric Ries is joining us this evening. As you guys know, Eric is a successful entrepreneur. He's the driving force behind the Lean Startup movement. And as I hope we're going to have a chance to talk about more later, he's a man on a mission to figure out how to make entrepreneurship actually a manageable activity. So before we jump into that, though, I have a couple administrative announcements. This is an excerpt from Eric's forthcoming book, The Lean Startup. You guys all should have received a copy of this when you came in. If you didn't, please grab it on your way out. We have plenty of copies. This is slated to be published on September 13th, and you guys are all at the front of the line to get that when it's published. The galleys, you may have seen this on Eric's blog, the galleys were just sent to him, and I know that he's feverishly working on editing the manuscript. Actually, I think he may be doing that backstage right now. So you'll get you guys will get this as soon as it's published. Second, the program for the evening, Eric's going to start by giving some brief introductory comments, and then I'm going to interview Eric on stage here. Following that, we're going to have a brief intermission, and then we're going to do something we've never done before. We're going to do what we're calling speed consulting. We're going to have two local entrepreneurs and business owners join us on stage, and they're going to describe their situation, and then Eric is going to give them some advice on the spot. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. Those two business owners, one is John Cronin. He's the CEO of PLP Digital Systems. I don't know, John, where? John's not here yet. Oh, there you are. Cool. Hey, John. And PLP has been around for 20 years, so I'm really looking forward to hearing how they're trying to implement Lean Startup inside their company. And then we also have Portman Wills, who's co-founder of Join the Company. Portman, where are you? All right. And he's leading the product development for their product called PlayPass. So looking forward to hearing Eric's feedback for both of them. The last announcement is the hashtag LeanDC, for those of you guys that are following the conversation on Twitter. LeanDC is the hashtag. So with that, let's welcome Eric.
Everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for braving what I assume was a life-threatening monsoon. I grew up in California, so that kind of thing doesn't just happen, and then everyone acts like it's normal. I'm like, what is happening? So thank you for being here. I want to correct one thing that Patrick said. Thank you for the introduction, Patrick. I appreciate it. He said that I was the driving force behind the Lean Startup movement, which really could not be less true. You guys are the driving force behind the Lean Startup movement. You got to understand, when I started writing about this, it was just a blog. It was just an idea. It was just a, hey, let's see what would happen if we started to think about this. And it didn't become a movement through anything I did. It became a movement because entrepreneurs around the world, even in crazy places like DC, started to take the ideas seriously and say, well, what would happen if we actually applied them? And then, of course, in the early days, those that you remember, didn't always go according to how it says it should go in the book, and they would obviously get emails, well, what about this situation? And what about applying the idea here? And sure, you're in consumer internet, but I'm selling into government. I'm working in government, started to get emails. I'm working in the Pentagon. I got one opportunity to go in there and talk about that. I was like, I don't know the answers to those questions. And together, us and a lot of other people around the world, a lot of other thinkers and bloggers and entrepreneurs have figured that out together. So that is what I find most exciting about this. I guess I benefit because my name's on the cover. So, when the press wants to talk to someone and get comment about Lean Startup, when we do big events, and I really, pretty fun, I admit it. Get to be part of that, get to be the figurehead, get to be the face of it, but I don't get confused, and I don't want you guys to get confused about what's really going on here. We have a unique opportunity, I think, in history to change the practice of entrepreneurship for the better. This is probably the best time in history to be an entrepreneur. There are more entrepreneurs operating today in the world than I think at any previous time in history. And we're still using legacy ideas about how to do entrepreneurship, and so the failure rate is really embarrassing. And I think we can do something about that, but it's going to require more than just talking about it, more than just thinking about it. It's going to require people to put these ideas into action and discover the rest of the iceberg, because what we know right now about entrepreneurship, I really believe, is the tip. We've just started to begin to create a science of entrepreneurship. But when people look back on this time, decades from now, they're going to laugh at us. We're going to seem quaint. The way that when we look back at early 20th century people who were trying to run things as simple as factories and didn't know how to manage them, we find that quaint. So we're at the very beginning of something that I think is really exciting. And so I want to thank you for being part of it. Thanks for coming out. And I'd like this as much as possible to be a conversation. So I said before, I do the big interviews. I get to speak to all kinds of different crowds and do the big public events. But to me, I already know what I'm going to say. So I hear my own voice just fine, plenty, and I'll fill whatever silence is available. Those of you who know me have noticed that phenomenon. But I really would like to talk to you guys and have a conversation about where are we going? What is this about? What is it that we need to know about entrepreneurship? So I encourage you to tweet and interrupt with questions at any time. Just yell them out, or I don't know if we have some orderly procedure, in which case you may follow that if you prefer. But I know I have a room full of entrepreneurs, so it's like, everybody follow the rules. Yeah, it's hysterical. So I won't even try that. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but entrepreneurship is cool all of a sudden. Anyone notice that? It kind of happened very suddenly. All of a sudden, entrepreneurship is like all over the movies and TV, and it's really exciting, and there's this crazy bubble, and easy riches are being made by all kinds of ridiculous people. And so, I don't know, I feel maybe contrarian by nature. I feel like it's always important to remember that, first of all, entrepreneurship is not cool. I don't have to tell you guys. The actual practice of entrepreneurship is actually extremely boring. I know you're not came for an exciting talk about entrepreneurship and the future of it, but really the stuff we need to talk about seriously here in this room, especially more than any other place, is the really boring stuff. So how many people saw The Social Network? Just a quick show of hands. Yeah, everybody. Anybody notice an eerie similarity between The Social Network and another great classic movie, Ghostbusters? Was I the only one that is obsessed with this topic? I guess it was only me. Well, both The Social Network and Ghostbusters are, if you remember, entrepreneurship movies. You guys remember Ghostbusters, right? Like, what is the movie about? Like, yes, there's some, ghosts and special effects and stuff, and they have to get Zool in the end. But the actual plot of Ghostbusters primarily involves these, 5 guys trying to create a business. We all know all the things they did wrong, right? They had this great new technology, and they blew all their money on this cool building and renovating it. Remember that part? And then they're literally almost out of money when their first customer finally walked in off the street. And talking about being in the right place at the right time, if Zool invaded New York a year later, Ghostbusters would have been broke, so they just barely made it. And what's so great about Ghostbusters, same as Social Network, right? Act 1 of the movie is always the same in an entrepreneurship movie, same in the magazine, same in every story, What happens in Act 1? We meet the plucky protagonists, we learn about their character strengths and defects, which will turn out to be important later. We obviously learn how they had their brilliant idea and why it's such a great idea. And then we enter Act 2, same in The Social Network and also in Ghostbusters, it's exactly the same. It's called the photo montage. During Act 2, it's usually about 2 minutes long, we go from shaking a hand with the first customer to pounding on some keyboards or zapping some ghosts or whatever. It's like no dialogue in Act 2. Nothing to talk about. We don't have a transcript of what's happening. We just see the kind of overview of all these cool things happening, and the end of Act 2 is always the same, people on the cover of magazines. And if you recall Ghostbusters, they're literally on the cover of every magazine. So Act 2 is 2 minutes long, and then we go to Act 3, the really interesting part of the movie, which is, of course, how do we divide up the spoils and deal with the rigors of success, who sues who, and, of course, what happens to Zool and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So what is it about entrepreneurship movies that we spend all our time in Act 1 and Act 3? And I think the answer is that those are the really exciting and sexy parts of entrepreneurship. How do you come up with a great idea? How do you assemble the all-star team? How do you have your breakthrough technology? And then, of course, how do you divide up the spoils? How do you deal with success? I know you guys spend a lot of time thinking about how you're going to deal with the rigors of success when it finally comes. What are you going to spend the money on? What will your philanthropic foundation? What will the strategy be? The really important problem, how do you maintain friendships now that you're rich and famous? I know, these are serious and interesting problems. And what happens during the photo montage? My opinion, my belief, is that every decision of significance, everything that matters about entrepreneurship, everything that actually determines the outcome of startups happens during the photo montage. And the reason it can't be in the movie, the reason it has no dialogue, is because it is unspeakably boring. Okay, what is in the photo montage? It is product prioritization meetings. Okay, you guys have been in product prioritization meetings. Does that seem like the stuff of movies to you? No, thank you for answering my question. Right, product marketing is probably the most boring thing that human beings have ever done in history. And yet, the fundamental challenges we have as entrepreneurs are, well, what products should we build, and in what order? What features are critical? How do we tell if we're making progress? Which customers should we listen to and which to ignore? Ghostbusters, we never see them having to deal with that. We certainly never see social network. We don't deal with those issues. Those are kind of pushed to the side because they're not very interesting to the outside world. So when entrepreneurship is exciting, like when product prioritization meetings have become exciting and cool, I get worried. I say something's not quite natural about this order of things, and we should be prepared. As they say in Game of Thrones, winter is coming. And so we are in the summer years of entrepreneurship right now, which happen to be in a moment when it's cool and exciting, but winter is coming, and we need to be, as entrepreneurs, prepared for that, because the test of our entrepreneurial revolution, the one that we are living right now, is not how many cool-looking companies can it create during the summer years. That's easy, right? There's easy money being made. There's tons of press eager to write about every new thing. This is as easy as entrepreneurship gets, and since you guys are doing it, you're like, this is the easy? Yeah, it is. It gets a lot harder when people turn skeptical against entrepreneurship, when many of the companies that we thought were great, that seem right now like they're changing the world, actually turn out to be worthless and fail. I've had that experience quite a few times. The question at that moment will be, how many of us have actually put ourselves in a position to have our companies succeed despite the ups and downs of the economy? So when I think about the goal of the Lean Startup movement, I really no longer get excited about saying, hey, let's create the next cool built-to-flip tech company. I'm really thinking about, how do we create the next Toyota? The next company that matters for generations, that can be a leader in the world, making the world a better place decade in, decade out, in good times and in bad. Because the great companies make money in good times and bad. They grow, they prosper, they help customers in all cycles of the economy. And so, in the summer months, it's fun, we're having a good time, it's enjoyable, enjoy it while it lasts. That's great. But I would like us to have a conversation about what are we going to do when winter comes? What's our plan? And how do we know, when you go to bed at night, how do we know that we're actually creating value and not wasting our time? Because when I was an entrepreneur, that's the question that kept me up late, and I really didn't